He was over at the dunk tank at Plu Elementary for our Plu back to school tailgate. My guy, you were champ. You took what, 15, 20 dunkings?
Well, I tell you, the funny thing about it is, we're real heavy in the community
Sure.
and things like that. Of course, my one child goes to Blue, and the other one will go to her. So my wife signs us up to sponsor the dunk tank. Okay.
Naturally.
Well, then she didn't tell me that she sponsored me to be in the dunk tank
That's
too. I
exactly
didn't know it was
right.
like a 2-for-1 deal here. I'm like, what are you thinking? So, listening to say I am sore today, and a little shout out to Spine Life
Yeah.
Chiropractic. Thank you, Dr. Turner, for oh man, getting me straightened up a
I'm
little bit there.
telling
But
you what,
I was hurting.
he'll
I
do
was
you right,
hurting.
man. I mean, because that's the deal is that, I mean, you get thrown in that dunk tank just enough times, and then you get scratched up on the back. There's always a piece
Oh
of
yeah.
metal hanging out that shouldn't be. They don't really regulate those things like
No, they
they
don't.
should.
And some of these kids, they got some arms on them.
I know. I'm telling you what,
Um,
some cannons.
I tell you, one kid, I told him, I thought you could
I'll tell you what. Well, they got some pictures in there from Niceville, and maybe a couple of quarterbacks in there too coming up. Exactly right. So I mean, as we're getting into the middle football season, we got our first big inner Okaloosa County test. Niceville is going up the road to 85 to go ahead and play the Crestview Bulldogs, and to kind of give us a little bit of a primer about how it used to be. He tell us, I mean, that game wasn't always as it's not it's almost
comes back to where and
Bell Military School.
yeah, seven, uh, last year, wasn't a regular season, but I mean they showed up to play,
Yeah.
and it was no joke.
And that's the thing about Crestview, especially the last 10 years. They show up and they come to play ball. Their defense looked really, really good last week. They held Choctaw to 14 points. Unfortunately, their offense wasn't able to get going. They lost 14 nothing. But you know, a stellar defense. But we have, I would say, it's kind of a three quarterback option that we're running right now between John Bacino and Kane Fortune and Johnny Lewis Jr. And they kind of bring something different to the table, each one of them. I mean, Johnny does a lot of running, but he's also got that pass orientation as well. He can make those throws. Kane is your classic, I would say, kind of field general quarterback that's
Yep.
kind of running around in the pocket a little bit. He does have some legs, as he proved last week. And then, of course, you have John, who's just like a hard charger. He's not any faster than Johnny. He's just lower to the ground, and he hits
He
hard.
does. I'd say he's got that low center of gravity about him, and when he breaks through that line, it's all over but the crying. I tell you, but you're right about it. It's a triple threat back there with those guys, and it's. I tell you, coach has done well with that team, and putting together an offense through working around those guys. It's nice to see something a little more exciting than the past few years. I
Mhm.
always like, hey coach, you got anything more than 8 plays to run here? It seems like the end arounds and the
Yeah.
halfback draws. Do something a little more dynamic. Come on, let's get some football going.
Well, we got dynamic this year for sure. Just, I mean, when you see three different people at the quarterback position, that's typically because everything has melted down. It's a disaster, and a team's about to go 2-8, right?
Yeah.
But you have these three kids that are coming in there playing vastly different roles. I mean, you got the short shardage specialist, basically, John Pacino. And then Johnny Lewis keeps them honest by putting it on the ground and making sure that, read options, stuff like that can get played well.
Yep.
And then, of course, Kane Fortune can throw the ball. And so an interesting kind of juxtaposition for us on offense against a Crestview defense that hasn't really let up a ton of points this year. They had Walton County, which of course plays down a couple of
Mhm.
divisions, but they have a really good quarterback over there and have a lot of offensive firepower that returned after last year when they won their district and beat South Walton, that had probably one of the best years that Walton High School has ever had. And so to see them hold that team to 21 points tells me that this is not going to be a walk in the park for
No.
Niceville. I don't think anybody expects it to be a walk in the park for Niceville. And I know another team that's going to have a lot of difficulties this evening is a team that Niceville is going to play next week, and that is
Okay.
Choctaw,
Yep.
who is, I believe, at Pine Forest this week. And I'm going to pull up the entire schedule for you guys to take a look at. Um, I mean, Pine Forest was, I would say, and I've told everybody that'll listen, I think that Pine Forest and Niceville was the closest blowout I've ever been a part to. Beginning fourth
Hmm.
quarter was an 8-point game,
Yeah.
but they didn't look like they were ever really in it.
No.
And so I am expecting, and I think you are as well. And we'll get to our picks here in a minute. I'm expecting Choctaw to pull that win off at home against Pine Forest and really make a name for themselves when they're going in to hosting Niceville come next week.
Yes, I think this will be good preparation too for them as well. And I think this is a good challenge for both this week with Crestview as well. I think Niceville is really gonna have to really kind of fine tune the offense to make sure they can drive the ball. Defensively, I think they're going to be studs.
Mm-hmm.
To be quite honest with you, I mean, watching those guys, they do a really good job at controlling the third down conversions and not a lot of big gains and things. So I think with the defense being solid and the offense being able to move the ball, it should be a good game in Niceville's favor.
Yeah, and other games that we're looking at this week, of course, Fort Walton Beach played Washington last night, lost to Washington 22-0 to bring their 2-game win streak that I don't think a lot of us saw coming.
No, not at all.
2-game win streak. That's a what movie is that from in baseball where they're like the longest streak of the season two?
You talking about the Cleveland Indians?
Yeah, where he goes, this is the
Um,
longest streak of the season
yeah, with
two.
Rick Vaughn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
Wild Thing.
wild thing. All right. And I didn't know Fort Walton was going to pull off a wild thing maneuver, but they're looking at Leon County at home next week, along with a couple of other games.
I think that'll be another loss for
I
them.
think it will, brother. They're not. It's rough, man.
It is.
It ain't easy. Looking at other games, we'll cover real quick. South Walton is going to Arnold. As you know, South Walton's getting a full field redo this
Mhm.
year, and that means that they're playing like the first 8 of their games away. And you got to feel for them, man.
Oh man, tell you what, you get a nice field like that, you only get a home field advantage.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's rough. But going into some of our other picks, and let me just pull these guys up for us here just in a minute. But to start it off, let's talk a little bit about, uh, I guess, the other big game we've talked about is Pine Forest Choctaw. Looking at Baker and Jay, I mean, these are two North End schools, one North End Santa Rosa County, North End Okaloosa County. Baker's traditionally pretty strong team, and Jay also kind of looks the part this year. What do you think, brother?
Well, both of them being, I think, what 2A, 1A,
Yeah.
lower class, but Baker's always been a team that, heck, I didn't even realize that Baker had won so many state championships back in the early days. And Jay has actually been pretty competitive as well. So this is going to be a good game for both of those guys.
Yeah, and I don't know if you knew this, but Jay actually used to be the richest town in Florida. Do you know why?
Do tell.
Okay, it's because they had all of the oil. They had a couple oil derricks up there. So the average per capita was the highest in Jay, Florida, where people made something like $60,000-$70,000 a year, like in the late 90s.
So maybe we're drilling the wrong holes
I'm
there.
saying, man,
Maybe
is
instead
look,
of in the aquifer, we need to
yeah,
drill for
that
oil.
don't drill for water no more, boys. All right. That's junior varsity hour.
Yeah.
All right. We're not here for that. Looking at some of our other picks, as you can see up on the screen, Heath won last week. I'm man enough to admit it.
Yeah.
He beat the rest of us who are now have a losing record. I guess I just picked games that were too hard.
Well, I think one, it's early in the season. It's really kind of hard to tell. You can look at them on paper, but I like watching them and see. I like watching the tempo and seeing how these guys respond on the field. I'll tell you, when we played Escambia
Mm-hmm.
and watching the coaches on the Escambia side and the players, I could tell there was just so much discombobulation. They weren't teamed up, and you just knew they were ready to self-destruct. And that's something that as the teams mature through the season, if you continue down the path, you're not going to win anything. So you got to keep your composure. And as we see that, the stats will also align with the scores, and we'll get a better feel what these teams are doing. So
I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think Escambia kind of put on a master class in what not to do when you're losing.
absolutely.
They ultimately they fell apart. I mean, the first half of the game, you could feel they were rickety for the first couple of drives, couple of punts, and then they got their stuff together. They got some swag, and there was a little bit of like University of Miami kind of vibe, where they were in your face, looking good,
Yep.
and then Niceville just stayed calm, stayed on the ball, and got progressively better and better.
That's the difference between a well-coached team
Mm-hmm.
and a disciplined team right there. Those are the guys that are going to prevail and they're going to win games. maintain their composure, and that's the things that Niceville brings to the table. So,
And I think that I don't think it's any by any means guaranteed, but I think that that's why Choctaw got all of our votes for this game against Pine Forest. It doesn't hurt that it's
yeah,
at home, but a well-led Choctaw team, a team that Taylor Morton said was probably one of the best coached teams he's seen in the last couple of years. I expect them to come in and win, and I expect it to be probably a 3-score game. But I don't think Pine Forest can get blown out. I just think that when all things said and done, I don't think Pine Forest has the chops this year.
no, Pine Forest, they looked average.
Mm-hmm.
They could move the ball, they can have some good defense, but I tell you, there was just nothing that really got me excited about watching them. I like to watch the sidelines too, and how the coaches react. I thought they were a disciplined team. I thought they were, they had all the right moves, they had all the right players and whatnot. Just haven't quite put it together to click really well. But I mean, other than that, I mean, they have the potential to be a really good program.
And the other thing that's going to be really great about this Pine Forest game that we're going to be watching, from far away is that Choctaw played, of course, Crestview last week. We played Pine Forest last week, so we'll be able to kind of see and kind of get a preview of, okay, how do these guys rack up and stack up against each other, and see if we have a real game going in next week and what we need to look for. But as we move forward, West Florida plays Walton this week at Walton. You and I picked Walton, and I think with good reason. West Florida did lose to Fort Walton Beach last week, and even though they're a smaller team, again, they have the firepower to back it up. Their defense is not where it probably needs to be, but they look really, really good on offense.
Yeah, Walton's actually ebbed and flowed over the years. Excuse me, over the years. Back in the '80s, they had a couple of nice running backs that did well in college, but they were always it was always a homecoming game for us. And it was a good game. By no means was it a blowout, but it was one of those that we looked forward to because we knew we had to play really hard because those guys really play some hard-nosed football, and they bring it to the table.
That's
I mean,
right.
they want to play. They're even though they're small, they pack a lot of
That's
punch.
right. And so, we talked about this one happened yesterday. Fort Walton Beach took that loss to Washington. I don't think that really surprised anybody, including my wife, who is now a high school football fanatic. So way to go, Abby, picking that one right. And moving into the college ranks, you'll see your Texas boy here has picked A&M to defeat the University of Florida. Please, Heath, do not give out my addresses. I would like to live. But why'd you pick UF?
Well, I tell you, I think they proved themselves last week, although it was Sanford, but they did put together a good game.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to execute. I felt like they really were trying to play. And I think really making that decision to move into the quarterback and change him out, the true freshman, is going to make the difference. I think you got to go with who somebody's going to get you where you need to go. And that's something that's hard for coaches to do, especially when you got someone on scholarship and then you got the new guy. It's like, what do you do? I'm like, hey, you got a fan base of these and you got a, multi-million-dollar stadium there that you have to maintain, some funds in.
You got to sell some tickets.
Yeah, you got to sell tickets, and if ticket sales are down, fans aren't happy and the AD's not happy. So I think this week Florida will come in. I hate to say it, I don't expect them to win, but I hope they do. But it's going to be a close game. I think.
And I think ultimately the sign of the team and whether or not they need to make a replacement at the head ball coach position is whether or not a team like this can get punched in the mouth a couple times and get back up.
Yeah, I tell you, Coach Napier, he, I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he's the coach that's going to lead you to an SEC championship or a national championship. When you watch the greats like Spurrier and Urban Meyer and some of these other guys. I mean, look at Lane Kiffin too. I mean, there's just so much passion in there, and I just don't see that with him. You watch him on the sidelines, it's just like a blank face. And it's like, come on, get these guys motivated.
Yeah.
Florida traditionally too is not a very well disciplined team.
Sure.
Now, they lost to LSU at home by throwing a shoe. I mean, who picks up a shoe and throws it? I mean, really, come on, guys. I mean, and that costs you the game.
And in y'all's defense, that is big LSU energy. I've been watching LSU since I was a little boy, and that's something that we would do.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. So now what I'm calling the South Florida Special Bowl. We have
really digging for some picks.
This was I didn't want to pick like the normal, like so and so is playing such and such and all the big time, college football comments. I could have, but like, why? They're playing Memphis. It's just like they're gonna lose.
Well,
look,
Memphis or Florida State?
Florida State. Look, you want to talk about a team that has gotten punched in the mouth? Look, again, and One moment, please. Going to do this. Point that up. See that? That's a Florida State degree up there. Okay, so let's not get all uptight about me hating Florida State, because I don't. I just think that it's a team that's gotten punched in the mouth. Starting with the not getting picked to go to the college football playoff, and then getting a bunch of kids leaving, and then losing the first game Georgia Tech, and then losing the second game to Boston College. They just that's a defeated team.
Yeah, they definitely look deflated.
Yeah.
I tell you, it's always disappointing when the kids don't show up for the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this was, if any one time that the kids should have showed up and played the bowl game, that was a time to prove yourself.
Prove them wrong.
I mean, I thought, honestly, I thought they were robbed.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is a flawed system that we have to work with. Hopefully this year with a 12-team playoff, it's going to be even better. But, it's just, man, you come up and the game that you could have just said, yes, we are the dominant force in college football, and you get blown out.
Yeah, but 90% of life is showing up, man.
Yeah.
And so that's why we picked this bowl game right here, or not bowl game, regular season game between two titans of South Florida football. That's right. The Florida International Panthers, Mr. 305 Stadium Florida International Panthers, going against FAU. And I'm going to sit here right now and tell you, I don't know anything about these two teams. I didn't look it up. I don't want to know.
Well, they got the one of them, the campus is right on the water.
And that's well and good. And the guys, look at me. That's neat. I'm glad that you guys have a wonderful campus and you guys are super neat, whatever. But I only picked FIU because they have Pitbull on their side and Mr. 305 and 305 Manny. I think that's great. I think that's really neat. And so I decided that I wouldn't go any further into the research of this game, because once I saw that Pitbull was on there, and after seeing the Sexy Beaches Florida Tourism commercial about 10 years, I was like, I'm in. FIU all day. Dale.
Well, you're right. I don't know much about these two teams. They are generally, obviously, they're not a powerhouse in any conference they play in, but they're going to play football, and somebody's got to win, and somebody's got to lose. So,
but yeah,
I picked FIU, and I picked FAU.
Look, you'll know that the game is started by the stench of burning garbage emanating from South Florida. Just look for that smoke signal. You should be good to go. New Mexico, Auburn. And I picked this one because, honestly, Auburn's had a hard time this year, but they've also had a hard time against teams that they should beat. I am going to go ahead and still pick Auburn, though. I think they're a solid enough team to beat New Mexico, and I hope that I am right. I am just not convinced.
Yeah. This one's a coin toss, but I'm going to go with Auburn.
Yeah.
Just keeping the
SEC. Safe bet. And then finally, last game, and probably the one that has divided houses more often than not, this house specifically. Texas Christian is playing the University of Central Florida, and your boy is picking Central Florida because I'm legally obligated not to pick TCU.
Yeah. Well, TCU is, they're a steady program.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a dominating program. They do ebb and flow, but UCF had one great season. They died off.
And, that national championship season?
The one.
Yeah. Where they won the national championship. Yeah, that's right.
But I think TCU is going to pull this one off.
So big two Titans of the Big 12 going at it. That game, of course, Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's what we have for you this week. Remember to like us, subscribe us, wherever you're looking at us, so you can see these two beautiful faces every Friday afternoon before the kickoff. Yep. We're glad to have you. We're glad to see you. And I'll be live from the game. You going to the game?
I'll be there.
All right, man. Well, hopefully we can get out of there before the pitchforks and the torches catch up with us at the end of the game.
If anything, it'll probably be the dogs, going out with their tail between their legs. No, wait a minute, they don't have a tail.
Oh, Bulldogs don't have a tail?
No, they're chopped.
That ain't right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we got for y'all. We will see you on the flippity flop, and we're heading out. And let me get this one to turn off. That way we don't